Welcome to the Impact ECMO podcast. We highlight the stories of impact innovators and connect them with the allies they need to amplify the good they can do in the world. I'm your host, Jacob Haney.
I'm here with Abrar with Oxfam. What I'd love to learn more about is sustainable development, particularly blended finance in a variety of regions, particularly through kind of the Oxfam model. What you see are the next big hurdles and how, as a community, can we help you better accomplish the good that you're trying to do in the world. So with that, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me in this podcast, Jacob. And it was really a pleasure to connect with you. So first of all, I often say in different places I go, to people I meet, I often say that finance, when used thoughtfully, can actually transform communities and spark sustainable change. And my journey started basically working in the private sector, building brands and strategies for global brands, specifically in Bangladesh. But I wanted to do more to grow businesses. And I wanted to grow opportunities for people who have historically left behind. And that's where I came to what I do actually right now in Oxfam, which is I lead Oxfam UK's Enterprise Development Program, which is a multi-country program based out of Asia, Africa, and Latin America, where we deploy catalytic and blended financing to invest in small and medium micro enterprises. These are not just businesses, as you can understand. These are, for us, engines of social change, creating jobs. Specifically, this program is very much focused around empowering women and also building climate resilience in communities that needs it the most. And that is where my passion lies in, specifically building ecosystems where capital becomes a true force for good. And I'm absolutely excited to share what I've learned and what possible things can happen when finance meets things for purpose.
It's easy, especially in finance, there's a lot of jargon and there's a lot of different things. And if you were to try to explain what you do to a 6-year-old, what's the Oxfam model? Like, how do you actually help these small businesses succeed? And what makes you different than other organizations out there trying to do similar things?
Absolutely. So first of all, we support enterprises which has a very specific focus on women. It's not just about women empowerment, but in every aspect of the value chain and the organization, through their work, through the products or services that they sell, there is an engagement of women coming into a leadership position, or I would say transforming it into a leadership position. And so we do support in two different ways. That's why we call it a blended financing model. So we do a technical assistance, which is basically capacity development, mentoring, working, giving them access to finance in different capital markets. And then we do a guarantee-based repayable model, which is partnering with DFIs and banks in the countries across Asia, Africa, and Latin America. So it's also a localized approach which we use to work with local partners to make it much more sustainable. And that's how this capital revolves back into their work. And that's why I said when a woman-led enterprise grows, it doesn't only support that growth of the company, but it does support the entire community that it works in. Children start going to school, finances become stable for the families, local economies become more inclusive. You would see organizations like Oxfam and other NGOs focusing a lot on advocacy and influencing. We also believe that things like catalytic capital can also bring a lot of change in sustaining these inequalities and moving these changes much more faster. And we have seen this, that sometimes advocacy and influencing takes a little time. And I personally, coming with backgrounds and work experiences in multiple regions in financing different innovative solutions, has worked much more faster at the ground level. I've seen real-time changes where Jeff was mentioning women getting a lot of leverage in different societies which they didn't used to get before. So I think that's a big change that's happening from time to time. These are innovative solutions that are not only just by Oxfam, these are done also by other organizations, as you may have already known, other INGOs, incubators, accelerators, impact fund managers. So I wouldn't say we are doing something exceptionally unique, but we are part of the change of the ecosystem. So we do partner with a lot of collaborators across the ecosystem, and that's where we try to leverage the force for good.
I mean, give me some case studies or success stories about the work that you're doing.
One of a very interesting partner came with us to support an enterprise in Ethiopia, which is called Andimama, where we had a lot of mothers who didn't have any work and they had a lot of negative social changes in their life. And that has not only impacted them, but their children, the community, the social status, their economic status. So what they basically do is they recycle different plastics and then they make very innovative products out of it, and then they sell it to the community in different shop outlets, different restaurants. It's not just empowering the mothers, but also making them feel much more recognized again. They are also becoming a part of the society which they were not very strongly a hold of. They are economically benefiting out of it. Some real-time changes would be their children were not going to school at all, but now they have started going. They are networking with people that they have never thought of, with governments, universities. They're coming into social media channels. They're talking. They're giving interviews. Not something that they are absolutely used to. But this kind of things changes a lot of people's mindset. I was in Ethiopia last year, and one of the women I was talking to was saying that some of her relatives actually became very very happy to see such changes happen in her life, and she got motivated and she started something of herself, not the same business, of course, but it's a different business. But you see the chain of impact that happens if you support one, even one person, one individual, and that could empower, motivate someone else, and then it acts as a chain in the community, and who knows?
Yeah. So, I mean, helping that one does have a chain reaction or ripple effect. And also paint for me a picture of just the scope of what Oxfam is doing. Like, so there's that one woman in Ethiopia that was helped, but how many like her are out there, or like, if it is it number of people or amount of capital mobilized, or like how do you measure the level of impact that you're making, and paint a picture of the scale of that for me.
We do have key impact matrices that we use to measure, specifically at the gender level and then at the planet level. Till now, we have supported, for example, over 40 enterprises across Asia, Africa, and Latin America. This is something that has helped us to give jobs to approximately 20,000 people indirectly. And then there is approximately 1,500 women who has been involved across value chains, across the organizations who have just got new jobs around here. We can also say that there are also indirectly a lot of people, including children and the corporate community, that have been impacted. We did a research and we saw that somewhere around 200,000 people got indirectly impacted through our work. So these are just rough numbers, but in terms of investment, we have given around 4 to 5 million in terms of recyclable capital that has gone through as loans to enterprises that has come back. We have a very low default rate. There are always challenges in the emerging context and the communities that we work in, but we still need that kind of space where traditional development model, aid and grants, can go only so far. So to tackle today's challenges of climate change, gender inequality, economic exclusion, we need that private capital to step in more and more, but not in a short-term profit-driven way. And that's where we talk about more impact investments and blended financing as game changers because they align the financial sustainability with the measurable social and environmental impact. So ventures like Oxfam are uniquely positioned to use investments, build ecosystems, which we are trying to do as a matter of fact, and ensure capital reaches those enterprises that truly can transform their lives.
You mentioned some misconceptions that investors might have. What do you see as the biggest hurdles that you have to overcome in terms of their biases or expectations, versus what the reality is?
So impact is a long game. It takes patience. It takes time. In order to get a very strong partnership and get rewarded out of it, it takes time. An innovative structure to align institutional expectations with the on-ground realities takes time. Being patient about it, and that's why you will see a lot being talked about, even in terms of. So you will see a lot of startups coming out of impact investments, blended financing, and you see people talking about patient capital, and that is why it comes across that investors do see emerging markets as high risk, But the truth is, the risk is not in investing because the cost of inaction on climate and inequality is far greater. So we need more catalytic constitutional capital to unlock private investments and prove that impact and returns can go hand in hand. There are lower default rates. There are investments that are doing much more than we even anticipated. So being able to communicate that in a much more structured way gives investors the confidence and the flexibility. It's also about a bit of a mindset. Traditionally, INGOs used to invest in enterprises only through the traditional model of grants. And that has changed a lot of enterprises' mindset about only taking money as free capital. And when they wanted to scale up, or we wanted them to scale up in through different alternative financing models, they always become a challenge because they're used to something which is very free. And that's why I think allies are very important. You are not able to do everything by your own. Oxfam will not be able to do everything on its own. I say we are more like an ecosystem first. So we need more impact investors, development financial institutions, family offices, foundations who are willing to take the first step to catalytic capital. We also need ecosystem players like accelerators, policymakers, academia, because isn't about one fund or one program. It's about building an entire system where impact and finance can reinforce each other.
Well said. So in that ecosystem, what's the biggest constraint or the biggest hurdle you face right now?
I think being able to understand who is doing what in what capacity. There are so many partners that work in different sectors, and at the end of the day, finance is not just about numbers; it's about people. So understanding people, understanding the organization, what their vision is, tagging along with them, trying to build an ecosystem is very important. For example, I've started something in Oxfam, which is called Oxfam Social Innovation and Incubation Lab, which is basically trying to partner with universities. You get the university students turn ideas into reality with some seed money, but we don't take it to scale. We work with different partners, for example, incubators, who actually turn into maybe an accelerator to try and support these individuals, which we have supported. Oxfam starts supporting everything, or a fund manager starts supporting everything, it doesn't bring the entire ecosystem to support that particular individual who doesn't have that access in the rural universities to start growing big. So it's all about that. First of all, trust is very important. Changing those mindsets are very important. It's very, very tough. And if we can direct capital to those solving the world's hardest problems, we don't just build businesses. We need to understand that we build futures, futures for the next generation, futures for us to live in a better planet. And I think that's the work I'm committed to. And I even invite anyone listening to join this journey, connect with us, and make this capital truly a force for good.
What are the allies you most need right now? The most crucial allies in this moment for Oxfam?
So one is so we do keep on building pipelines in every countries that we work with, being able to find partners who can support us in getting the right entrepreneurs for us to support because we don't support like a normal incubator or accelerator for a small period of time. When we come in for a longer period of time, and that's why we call it a much more systematic shift. We also support in so there they have a policy issue. For example, there is a safe food chain problem. For example, in Bangladesh, there is no specific policy for safe food. So we do work with the partner that we have supported in trying to advocate safe food policy. So in those cases, we do also need partners such as who can support us even in advocating or influencing with the governments. We need partners who will be able to maybe co-match our funds. We are, for example, working in Nepal to de-risk our technical assistance by connecting with another INGO. So there could be other INGOs, incubators, accelerators who can support us at the technical assistance level, but we need partners who can support us at the scaling guarantee level, which could be impact investors, which could be family offices, foundations, developing finance institutions that we would need to scale our work and even build up innovative financing structures with.
There's a lot of things out in the geopolitical situation. There's a lot of things that could be frustrating or discouraging or have a negative slant to it. But where do you see hope?
I think my first hope is when you have all these actors, partners with you together, you feel more confidence in delivering impact. That's what my hope is, trying to bring in these catalytic partners, even beyond funding, knowledge partners, universities. who can help us funding this ecosystem for entrepreneurs in places where those opportunities at all don't exist. So we can combine capital, knowledge, networks, and unlock transformative impact at scale. I also do believe with the geopolitical shift, there is a very, very big change in the landscape, the funding landscape, which specifically INGOs like Oxfam were quite used to. So you've seen that with governments shrinking down budgets for support for development sectors, there is an increased budget for other issues like military budgets are increasing. So that's when private capital is absolutely necessary. Working with different partners across the ecosystem, trying to innovate structures, mechanisms to try and adapt to all the changes that are happening geopolitically, to also safeguard what has been done, and also to safeguard what needs to be done so it doesn't hamper all the impact that has already been created. The challenge for development sectors are we have always worked in project cycles, and whenever a project cycle has ended, we have not been able to continue the impact that we have done. One example, very recent example, is we're trying to exit from Rwanda as part of our organizational process and strategy. And we have been trying to support all the work that we have been doing through local partners. So it's not just exiting, but it's doing a successful transition of the work that we have already done. So finding out real partners in Rwanda who can continue the work that we have done. And that's where the work we have done with the local partners for the last 15 years has actually helped. And now these local partners are coming out to these entrepreneurs that we have supported to try and support them not only in Rwanda, but in the region, in Africa as a whole. And I still got emails yesterday that they would like to support this cashew nut value chain project that we have supported in Rwanda and scale it at a much more higher rate. So I think these are important things which also investors then see and say, okay, this is not just a one-time impact, one-time effect, and there is a balance of return that we are getting, but there is also a balance of impact that our money can lead to. So why not give it a chance of doing traditional investor investments and impact investments? And that's where I think the
So before I let you go, what else do you want to share?
there will be challenges. So we do face a lot of challenges. People are talking about a lot about is impact investment real impact investments or is just impact washing? And I think what my belief is, to be very honest, the biggest challenge isn't the lack of ideas. It's really lack of the capital flowing where it matters most. There is money flowing, but it's flowing sometimes, I believe, in a very wrong direction than it should have been. Uh,
Hmm.
there's plenty of capital in the world, but very little still reaches to the early stage entrepreneurs in the fragile context because of the perceived risk. Most of the investments that we see still doesn't reach that part of the world that actually needs it. And I think that shift is happening. It's just not fast enough. If you're listening, want to collaborate, feel free to catch up,
Yeah,
connect.
I love that. I mean, it's something that it's a soapbox that I often stand on, but just I'm too often in whatever types of business, but even especially in, if it's NGOs or impact investors or nonprofits or whatever, like we're all trying to do good in the world, and yet we try to do it in our own little silos and defended by our own little proprietary wall when we're never going to reach the sustainable development goals without that ecosystem that you talked about. And really, as a storyteller, I see the power of having the right stories to connect each other. And also, so there's this quote that I love that's the shortest distance between two people is a story. And really culture is about the stories that we tell and believe as a group. And so like we're actively trying to help shift paradigms through telling better stories that are about connection and collaboration and that what we can accomplish together, and applaud what we can accomplish together, because it is, like you said, one of the modern diseases we have that gets in the way of our best and highest communities and self and planet. We're not looking at the long term. And I think as soon as we do, it's obvious what we need to do.
No,
But when we're only focused on today, it can really skew how we act and behave, and we become a lot more territorial and selfish. But the wide view sees that we need each other and we're going to get there better and faster collaborating. So thank you for the good that you're doing, Abrar. And if people want to try to learn more about what you're doing, what's the best place for them to find you?
I would say LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the best way that they can come reach out to me. And I really believe the work that you're doing, specifically trying to reach such kind of stories and bringing it out to the world. So, for example, even I tell to some of the university students that I work with, whenever you go on the ground, see things yourself, see the impact yourself, see the changes yourself, it's such a big thing, and I think that's something that you can take in, that you won't be able to understand when you're just sitting on your room or your desktop on your laptop. And thanks a lot, Jacob, for bringing these impact stories out in the world, and specifically bringing it to people where I think it needs to be. Sometimes these communications are still not being able to go to that stage. So thanks a lot for bringing that change.
Thank you. And look forward to seeing more of the impacts that you make.
Thank you so much, Jacob, for having me again. Take care.